Does Opus prove to its viewers that it is the greatest work, or does a lack of creativity make it not worth its title? Spoiler, if you've not seen the movie, make sure you bookmark this video and come back to it. Otherwise, you've been forewarned. Alright, so let's talk about fans and stans. A big part of this movie's message is that fans and stans of certain celebrities will always be enamored with everything they do or say, willing to say or do anything that's asked of them, and even tolerate questionable behavior, whether it's good or bad. It's almost as though being part of a fandom can feel like almost being like a cult. That's basically what this movie is trying to say. For example, whether you're a Taylor Swift Swiftie or a Justin Bieber believer or one of Lady Gaga's little monsters, part of Beyonce's Beehive, or a member of the BTS army, would you do or say anything just to prove your loyalty and reach the highest level of fandom? Something you should ask yourself when you watch this movie. It's a cult. Moretti is a member and really the leader of the Levelists, a group devoted to promoting artistic expression and educating younger generations in a new era of creativity. But the moment the 6 lucky members arrive at the compound, it was obvious. The matching blue garments, the eerie behavior, it's all screaming cult. The pearl scene was especially interesting, I thought. Ariel asked Moretti if their religion ever does anything together as a group, and he takes her to a single tent where a fellow levelist sits at a table full of oysters, frantically trying to find a pearl inside one of them. He's so obsessive in his mission that he cuts his hand and even stabs himself. This moment connects to other members where we've seen throughout the movie where they have scars on their hands, suggesting that they've also gone through the same type of ritual. Moretti explains that the pearls are more than valuable objects. They symbolize perfection in the belief that individuals are destined to stand out. Levelists wear pearl necklaces to signify their membership in Moretti's cause, well, his cult. So let's talk more specifically about Moretti. When you first see Moretti, he immediately brings Elton John to mind. His fashion, flamboyant costumes, and over-the-top showmanship clearly emulate Elton's iconic persona. Upon the guest's arrival, Moretti presents himself as a humble celebrity, eager to give them a great time, and of course, a story to take home that spreads good word of mouth about his newly released album, Caesar's Request. John Malkovich, who plays Moretti, excels at portraying villains who are deceptively trustworthy, master of mind games who speak with an eloquence that makes you want to believe them. He's so good at that. I also have to comment on his vocal performance on the songs featured in the movie because he actually sings them. Dina Simone, Tomorrow, and 35mm, all sung by Malkovich himself and produced by Nile Rodgers and The Dream. And they're actually pretty good songs. You can actually buy the album. His performance of 35mm, however, it felt a little bit silly to me, and if you watch the movie, you'll understand what I'm talking about. And occasionally it kind of pulled me out of the film. Like there's a scene where he's shaking his butt and like kind of shimmering himself. It seemed kind of silly. But once I noticed how the song seemed to place his guests, with the exception of Ariel, into a trance, like there's one where the paparazzi lady, you can kind of see the sparkle in her eye with like fascination. They kind of tease us in the beginning opening credits of the movie where all these fans are like jumping up and down, and like as it progresses they have like this glimmer in their eye, almost like they're in a trance. It drew me right back in though, and it was almost as if Moretti had cast a spell over them. Very creepy. All right, let's talk about Ariel. Ayo Edebiri, hopefully I'm pronouncing her name right, best known from The Bear, plays Ariel and delivers a great performance as a young journalist whose sole mission is to ask the big questions and get the big story. As someone who has studied journalism himself, I appreciate seeing her struggle with being pigeonholed as the idea person, dismissed because of her age and lack of experience, despite having the drive and the determination to obviously do more. As a journalist, you always strive to be the one that writes and delivers the big story, the one that elevates your career, earns you more clout, and gives you access to even bigger opportunities. To be, in a sense, the celebrity of journalists, right? That's what she's kind of striving, like the, Barbara Walters, the Oprah, the, Wendy Williams, whatever you want to call it. I mean, not that Wendy Williams was a journalist, but she was a radio talk show. But just on that level of, stardom where you get to interview the big people. I like that Ariel was always inquisitive and unafraid to ask the questions. Moretti doesn't intimidate her, and I really admired that about her. All right, let's talk about my likes and dislikes. So my likes, because there's less of those than the dislikes. I really enjoyed Ayo Edebiri and John Malkovich's performances in the movie. They both do an excellent job of establishing their roles as unspoken rivals, developing this ongoing tension at a natural and believable pace. I also appreciate that the film leaned more into the horror elements that were weird, unsettling, and genuinely disturbing, especially with the subtle hints of Moretti's rival murders. Sorry, hints of Moretti's rival's murder and the brutal reveals in the final act. It was good. I enjoyed that. All right, dislikes. My main dislike, and what I would have changed if I had written the movie, is that I wish it had leaned further into the Wonka-esque elimination of guests. It kind of presented that from the beginning. You know, you have these guests that are kind of randomly picked. They're given a gift basket, almost like their golden ticket to this world that Moretti lives in, almost like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. So I wish it kind of would have leaned more into that with the horror element. While the first person to disappear is Moretti's rival, and 2 additional guests later meet their fates, it would have been far more effective if all the guests, except for Ariel's boss, I think, had remained until the end. Then during the third act reveal, Ariel's boss could have turned on her, leading to a tense showdown for who would become Moretti's ultimate fan. Ultimately, Ariel would prevail, but instead of feeling triumphant or basking in Moretti's praise as his #1 admirer, she would choose to escape and live to tell the tale, just as she does in the film. The outcome would have carried more weight, I feel like, considering how she's always been forced to play second fiddle to her boss and the others. So it would seem like that would be her way to get glory. It also would have reinforced the irony that, unlike other guests, Ariel wasn't obsessed with Moretti. So her survival would symbolize rejection of his twisted fandom rather than validating it as if her boss or somebody else would have won. So what this movie reminded me of, as I kind of mentioned earlier, this movie kind of reminded me of different films. So there's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, with its 6 lucky fans who get the chance of a lifetime to meet Moretti. There's also Midsummer, or Midsommar, however you want to say it, a fellow A24 film. Amazon MGM's Blink Twice with Channing Tatum, which also kind of gives the cult-like communities and psychological control, there's even a touch of Silence of the Lambs, I feel like, kind of towards the final prison sequence between Moretti and Ariel. So you'll kind of get all those subtle hints in the movie. So here's my final thoughts and review for Opus. While the film's title alludes to its 2 main characters' desire to create their greatest work, the movie seems to abandon some of the creativity it initially celebrates in favor of faster-paced horror thriller elements. While some viewers may appreciate this, others will see it as incomplete and misguided piece of work. So I ultimately give Opus 3.5 out of 5. Let's see if I can find John Malkovich's face. John Malkovich's. If you enjoy this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you want more, make sure you follow or subscribe. I'm trying to do the 31 days of Halloween, where I do 1 video for every 31 days of October, and hopefully I can maintain this challenge. It's difficult, but I'm enjoying the challenge. Again, if you enjoy this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and as always, I'll see you next time on The Mashup.